Standing by. The Terry and Ted podcast is sponsored by Jaguar Land Rover Laval. Get out of the big city and experience a construction zone free test drive. There is such a thing.
Standing by, the podcast, episode 5. Hi, Ted.
How are you? I'm
okay. How are you?
Good. Have we done 5 already?
I think this is number 5.
Holy old smokes.
Number five. We've covered a number of topics, and one of the things that I wanted to mention is we do intend to have guests eventually, but right now we're completely wrapped up in ourselves.
That's right. Yeah. Don't you know who we think we are? Enough about me. Yeah. Now you talk about me.
We're getting our feet on the ground, and we thought a good way to get our feet on the ground would be to
tell the same old stories that we've always told for all these many years.
What do your kids say? You got
my kids say I have 10 stories, and I just keep telling the same 10 stories on a loop. But you know what?
What?
In doing this and in sitting down and in thinking and thinking about where we can go moving forward, I've come to realize that I actually have 12 to 15 stories. So fuck you guys, okay?
Dad.
He's such a charmer.
Isn't he, though?
Yeah.
It was actually fun. Last night we had dinner for the first time in a long time at Duke and Devine's, where your offspring seem to have
well, Sam works there, and Charlie's been fired from there twice.
Different career paths.
Yeah. Well, that's Charlie's like a shooting star.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, he flames out fast.
So, last night, one of the things we talked about when we were at dinner was it's still astonishing to both Ted and I that
Ted and me.
Still the same.
Sorry.
It's still astonishing to Ted and me that people still approach us. People will come up to me and go, "Ted, how are you?"
Yeah.
And talk about the days of when we were doing a regular morning show. And it's stunning to remember how many years ago that was. Also, it's a really high compliment.
Well, more than astonishing, it's flattering.
It's very flattering.
And we had that experience this morning when we stopped for sandwiches and coffee at Non Solo Pane, a trattoria in Dorval.
Right.
And Sebastiano, who owns and runs the joint, along with his wife Claudia, he let us jump the line, and they were lined up right out the door.
Yeah.
And he waved us over, and he made us some sandwiches and gave us some pastries to bring up to the studio. And so happened that Poseidon brought coffee as well, so it all worked out.
We're getting fatter by the minute.
That's right, yeah. But anyway, it was nice that Sebastiano took the time to ask you about retirement and how that's going, and mentioned that you're missed.
Yeah, he was happy for me. He said, I'm glad for you. You don't have to get up in the middle of the night, and I hope you're enjoying it. It was very, very kind of him. I feel shame a little bit about cutting the line there. We shouldn't have done that.
Well, no, the owner said, follow me.
Yeah, that's right.
So what are you going to do?
Well, we did. We followed him, and the next thing you know, he was making sandwich.
Yeah, and good sandwich, let me tell you. That's a good spot.
Yeah. Anyway, all of that to say, as Ted said, it's quite flattering, and we thought we would talk about our last go-round at Shome. I think that was... I shouldn't say we had more fun than we ever did, but I think what happened was after we left CJD and went back to Shome, we were beginning to become much more confident in who we were and what we did and how we were doing it. And I think as a result of that, we were more in control. Some days out of control, but more in control of what we were doing.
Yeah. And I think, speaking for myself, I know... a little bit less concerned with what's anybody going to think. Frankly, I don't give a shit what anybody thinks. I'll do what I do to the best of my ability, and if it flies, great, and if it doesn't, well, I'll try to be better tomorrow.
I think, I don't know if you've noticed this, but I certainly have. It's one of there are a number of things that aren't great about getting older, but one of the things that is great about getting older is I don't give a shit. If you don't, you're not interested, and then I don't care. Like you said, we in the last episode we talked about hate mail we received, and back then, it had a real onerous effect. You know, it's like you'd walk around for days thinking, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
And now you think,
Yeah, I mean, you know, nobody likes to be insulted.
No.
Nobody likes to be criticized, and I don't mind constructive criticism, and I'm quite open to it. But for example, social media is not a great forum for constructive criticism. I hope you fucking die, you asshole piece of garbage. That's not constructive criticism.
It isn't?
No, I can't take that and somehow make myself better with that. But increasingly, and I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. My skin is not, completely thick yet.
Yeah.
Sometimes I still let it get under my skin a little bit if somebody takes, especially an anonymous. I don't like anonymous trolls online. If you're going to take a shot at me, take your shot, but look me in the eye.
Yeah.
Look me in the eye when
Stand
you take your
behind
shot.
what you think.
Exactly. Have the courage of your convictions, and I'm liable to take you a little bit more seriously. But no, I know what you're saying. I'm getting much better as time goes on at not giving a shit.
You wade into cesspools that
I'm getting better at not wading into those.
I just my wife will go, come and look what Ted
said. Not as much as I used to, and I try to measure it on a couple of levels. A, is it worth it? Is it worth the battle? And B, will I get fired for it from my current employer?
Yeah.
Because you got to think about that a lot too, because the sharks are constantly circling on social media now. People are actively trying to destroy other people's lives for sport.
Yeah. It's frightening a little bit.
Yeah.
And we did say at the outset, upon sitting in these two chairs, we're not going there. We're not wading into pools. We're gonna have some fun and some laughs and tell stories.
Yeah. And you know what? If we happen to blunder into any of the hot topics of the day, we will delicately remove ourselves or try to handle it like Poseidon and Pantelis and Mike on 2 Drink Minimum. Yes. They're so good at taking on like the real touchy hot topics of the day, and they just make it funny.
You can also email us at yugahagawaga.com.
They just make it funny, and also, and I respect the hell out of this, they don't give a shit.
Yeah. You don't give a shit, do you, Poseidon?
No.
I've told fans live on air during the morning show to go fuck themselves.
Right to the point then.
Yeah, just to cause a stir amongst themselves, and then they start fighting in the chat.
But you don't have to answer to anybody.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
We don't have to.
If I get one more memo from head office saying, if you one more time on social media, that's it for you, Buster. Well,
okay.
Yes.
Well, this is actually a good takeoff point for our last go round at Shome, because in both our cases it ended in a flaming wreck.
It did, yeah.
It did, yeah.
But we did have fun until the wrecks began to flame.
Oh my God,
we had a lot of laughs, and part of the fun was the producers that we had. We had some. Who did we have? Thumbs in the beginning.
Yeah, Thumbs Repaw came over to Shome, which was quite a departure for him, because
big time.
He had been at CJD for many, many years, and I thought he thrived there. Well, he was so good at what he did, and he was such a great asset to us. It was great to have him, and it was Terry, Ted, and Thumbs in the morning.
Yeah. I'm counting them off in my head. We, in a 5-year run, I think we had at least 5 producers. We had Thumbs. We had Ryan Wood, we had Brandon Craddock, we had Jay Walker.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about Brandon and Jay.
Yeah, and Jeff Bartlett.
Yeah.
And who was producing when you left? Was Jeff still producing when you left?
I think so.
Yeah?
I think he was. I think he was. Now that I think about my last day there, I think it was him.
Yeah, and we had fun with all 5, but the most memorable moments to me are with Jeff, because Jeff had this big booming laugh.
Yeah.
And Jeff, I've never seen anyone enjoy and relish in the misfortune of others. and not in a mean way either.
Not at all.
When something would go sideways on the air.
Yeah.
he would laugh so hard in a mocking way, but a lovingly mocking way. For example, the day that you came in with your new haircut, and you should have seen the haircut he got. It was the worst haircut that I've ever seen, at least on you. And you told the story so well about you said you got it. You said you went to your regular place, or you couldn't get an appointment at your regular place, so I went to haircut place. And you came in, and I don't remember. Do you remember exactly what I said to you with the line that set Jeff off? I don't remember what exactly.
Well, it had to do with Friar Tuck.
Yeah, it did.
And it was something I said. I didn't go into the barbershop with a brown robe and a rope for a belt, but I ended up.
You came out with the Friar Tuck, yeah. And Jeff laughed so loud.
Standing by, the Terry and Ted podcast is brought to you in part by my friends at matelasbonheur.ca. I ended up speaking on their behalf years ago because I was looking for a new mattress, and I walked into the store, Ted, and somebody said to me, "Good afternoon, how can I help you?" And I looked behind me to see who he was talking to. These days, Ted, when you go into a store and you get like, you don't really get the kind of warmth and the kind of manners that you might be looking for when you're spending money.
What you mean?
Yeah, that's one of the things that drew me into Matelas Bonheur right away. They were kind. They were inquisitive about what the heck I was looking for in terms of a better night's sleep. And they didn't pressure me. They didn't follow me around. All their stores are so beautifully designed. And in those stores, you will only find things that pertain to a better night's sleep. And that's linens, beautiful linens. Some of them they've designed themselves. You can get all kinds of pillows and bedding. And
vodka? Can you get vodka?
You can't get vodka.
Better night's sleep. No?
Sorry about that. No, there's no vodka.
Can't drink
there.
yourself to sleep at
No,
Matelas Bonheur?
I don't suggest that. I suggest one of the nice new mattresses that you'll find in these beautifully designed stores.
Trying to help, Jer. How am I doing?
Terrific. Thank you very much. So far, no bars at the store, but you will find yourself an amazing staff, a better night's sleep, and you can start at matelasbonheur.ca. Find the location near you.
Another time we were talking about the best ribs in the Montreal area were supposedly on the 132, I think in Saint Constant, down around there, and it was
ribs and chicken joint.
Yeah. And you said, I was talking about that, and you said "c'est loin ça," which means is that far? Yeah. I had no idea what you were talking about, so I forget what I said. Said "c'est loin ça," and I went. I don't remember what I said, but again, it set Jeff off, and he had such a great
This
laugh.
would be a good place to play a clip of Jeff's laugh, but we don't have one handy.
It's too bad.
Yeah.
We've got to find one.
Well, we'll come back to that.
Yeah, I know. I've heard stuff. There is stuff with his laugh in the background somewhere in whatever archives we have. Did you ever get to go through the stuff that your dad kept? You said your dad kept like old tapes, reel-to-reel tapes and cassette tapes.
My mother and father were so meticulous. They kept every article that was printed. They recorded every TV appearance we were on, and it's all in boxes. And believe it or not, part of my retirement project has been trying to find a reel-to-reel machine, and it's next to impossible to find.
I know someone who's got one.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about that after. And I should say, the man we're speaking of, who lovingly mocked us at will, and did it, like, as you point out, in a brotherly fashion.
Oh, absolutely,
like you say, with love.
Yeah.
He is a firefighter in Vancouver. And here's something that I didn't know about fire departments across North America. They say, firefighters will tell you, there are 2 fire departments that are close to impossible to get hired by. One is New York City, and the other one is Vancouver.
Really?
And when Jeff got hired in Vancouver, it was being run by, the way it's run, it's like the Marine Corps. These 2 fire departments, from all I've been told, I don't know anything, so if you're a firefighter, don't write me. Jeff told me both Vancouver and New York are run in an old-fashioned form, in an old-fashioned way.
Right.
He told me that after he became a firefighter, one of the first calls he went on as a first responder was a decapitation in a car accident. And he heard the boss of the scene say, "Hey, rookie, go get the head."
Jesus.
Yeah. So he is, for somebody who lovingly mocked us for so long, he's now literally saving lives out in Vancouver.
Yep. Happily married and a good dad as well.
A good dad. Yeah. So we thought we would mention that. We miss you, Jeff.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, most of our producers have gone on to much bigger and better things than they ever enjoyed with us.
Yeah. Left the old fuckers behind.
Yeah. Ryan Wood went out to Fort McMurray, right, and became a project manager.
Yeah. He's a bigwig and up in the oil sands.
Yeah. And another proud and good father. I think Brian's got 3 boys or something, doesn't he?
2 boys and a daughter.
Okay.
Yeah, and both of his sons are coming back to haunt him. One is an incredibly good hockey player, and the other one loves to ride dirt bikes.
Wow.
Just like Dad did when he was younger.
Oh, did he? Yeah, I didn't know that about Ryan.
A bit of a speed demon when he was a kid.
Yeah.
Anyway, the story of our run included all our regular figures. I don't think we had a lot of guests in those days, Ted. We had revisionist history. We had,
you know who I remember coming in one morning, and I think he was pushing a vodka. Was Dan Aykroyd? Do you remember the morning Dan Aykroyd came in?
Yeah,
because my son Sam was in the studio that morning, and Sam probably only would have been about maybe 10 years old at the time.
Yeah.
But I specifically remember Dan Aykroyd coming in.
And was that the era when the guys from Johnny Walker came in?
No, that was during our run. That was during when we were at Mix 96. That's actually a great story.
Yeah.
And that was back when I was still drinking. And the Goodwill ambassador from Johnny Walker was doing the rounds, and he came into the radio station. And
they were launching the Blue Label.
Is that what they were doing?
Yeah, because the Blue Label is what, $200 a bottle?
Something crazy. Yeah. They lined up 5 bottles of scotch, and we sampled from each bottle up to and including the blue
at 7:45 in the morning.
Yeah, it was early in the morning. All I remember was that the 8:30 news was a happy newscast. Good morning, everybody. Everything's great in the news. It's all great. I'll tell you right now. It's great.
There's a couple of legendary stories in the industry of drunk news guys. And what is
Well, you witnessed one.
I did. What is it about drunk news guys that something tells them to go to everything's okay, no problem whatsoever?
I don't know.
And
yeah.
we've heard a couple of tapes of a couple of people doing just that.
There's one from Calgary in the 1980s.
Yes.
I wish I still had this because it was so funny.
I've looked for it. I can't
This
find
guy
it.
he was hammered.
It was New Year's Eve.
Is that what it was?
I think so.
Well, he obviously came straight to work from the party or the bar or wherever he was.
Yeah.
And he opens the newscast with he opens the newscast by going, "It's 7 degrees at 6:01. It's -4." An 11-degree temperature swing in that 2 second span.
And it all went downhill from there.
He just kicked it around the block. And like Terry said, every story he did, there's a fire in the Northeast End today, but everything's okay, no problem whatsoever. Every story at the end of it was everything's okay, no problem whatsoever, which I think was him trying to convince himself on the air that everything was okay, no problem whatsoever. I got news for you, pal. Everything's not okay, big problem.
So you read the news, and I hosted the show, and I'm thinking of my most recent turn at Shome where they fired my guest host and then gave me a bunch of people asked me to have a bunch of people on at different points during the week, so they didn't have to spend money on a co-host. And when you and I were doing the show together, I don't think we had any of that. We relied on mostly your sense of humor and my ability to make the show go straight. It was smooth just like that.
Yeah, and your ability to articulate.
Yes.
That reminds me of a story one time about a guy who we worked with who said, I tried to. He was one of those classic guys with a big voice but nothing to say.
Yes.
So give him something to read and he sounds great, but if he has to say something, he struggles. And he said, he says, I was in London, Ontario. I tried to do a talk radio, but I couldn't think of anything to say. He says, but you guys, you guys are so like you guys know how, like with words. And I said, articulate? And he said, yeah.
Well, we both brought our own strengths.
I think so. Yeah, I think they're complementary skill sets.
Yeah, I think that's how it went, and it was going along swimmingly. We were having an absolute ball. Ratings were good. Advertisers wanted to be on the program. Everything was coming up roses. Everything was going great, and then bosses switched.
Yeah,
and I don't want to get into. I'm not personally.
No, it won't get into mudslinging. It was a clash of personalities and philosophies, which is what happened to me later.
Right. So a guy arrives in the building, and he, for lack of a better term, had what I considered a bit of a bully style. Mm-hmm. We went from a guy who was, arm around you, encouraging you, and would say to you, you did this thing, but maybe you want to try it this way.
And who also respected your experience and your history.
Right. And
your heritage in the marketplace.
Right. And my haircut.
That too, Friar Tuck.
And when this change came, I began to clash. And one of the things that I must confess on the podcast is through my 30s and 40s, I was quick to anger. I had quite a temper. And I always believed that, I was passionate about what I was doing, and I was really, I was stubborn, and I didn't respond well to, you're doing it all wrong.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Well, who would?
I didn't respond well.
Who would, especially if you're established in, at this point you're like 25 years in or whatever, and you've done very well at what you do.
And I've been very lucky. I worked for a lot of great program directors, because that's what they're called. They're called program directors. But I had other program directors. One guy told me I was telling the time wrong, and I thought to myself, what in blue blazes? Anyway,
look at the clock. Yeah. It's 96 after 3. What don't you get?
No, you know what he told me?
What?
Don't say 10 past 7. Nobody knows what that is. The Standing By podcast is being supported by the Mersons. The Mersons are a family who've been running an automotive center at the corner of St. Jacques and Cavendish for more than 50 years. Ted and I have been clients of theirs and speaking on their behalf for almost 30 years. And it's because I don't know anything about anything when it comes to cars, mechanics, and tires. Now, I know tires are round. I know you need 4 of them on my particular automobile. I also know they're made of rubber and they have writing on the side, Ted.
Good for you. You're coming along, Terry. You're coming along. Merson will take it from here. They know everything about tires. They've been tire specialists now for over 50 years. Their service advisor's knowledge is second to none. They'll work with you to make sure you purchase the right tire for your car, not just for your car, but for your driving habits. They've got competitive pricing with most sizes available in stock and experienced tire technicians who can expertly handle and balance your wheels. And they also specialize in Yokohama tires and Nokian tires, 2 of the best brands out there.
A family-run business. That's the other thing I love about them. The owners are at the counter if you ever have a problem, and you won't. Call them at 487-5545. You can also visit them online at mersonauto.com. So anyway, Guy comes in and we begin to fight.
Yep.
And when I say fight, I mean, I tried to be respectful, but as the disrespect for what I did grew, I became more and more angered. And in what year was it? I think it was 2007. Ted and I had a contract that expired at the end of August. And so the contract expires, and Ted and I sat down, and Ted said, what are we going to do? And I said, we're not going to do anything. We're going to sit here, and they know where to find us. And if they want to keep us, they'll keep us. And if they don't, they won't. So the contract was presented to us, and it came with what I like to refer to as a punch clock clause. This is one of the reasons I got into radio.
I forgot about that.
Right. This was the first thing on the contract. And one of the reasons I got into radio was because when you do a show on the radio, it's all up to you what you do, how you do it, how you execute it. But you got to be successful. If you don't get ratings, you're out on your ass.
Get ratings or get fired.
Yeah, exactly. And so that meant you could come in, whatever time you needed to, however you wanted to do it. If you wanted to do all your work at home and come in the last minute, then that was fine with most people.
As long as you were successful.
As long as you were successful. Yeah. And Ted knows this. Ted always got there before I did. And in those days, I was doing the last minute thing. I was prepared when I arrived, but I didn't like to arrive too early. I got there with 10 minutes to spare and sat down. This guy didn't like that. And in the contract, he put, you will arrive at such and such a time, and you will stay until such and such a time. And I looked at that, and I folded it up. I put it back in the envelope, and I put it on his desk. And I said, never going to sign a contract with a punch clock on it. And he said, okay, get out of my office. And I did. And I think maybe 3-4 days passed by without any chat or talk. And he said, I've redone the contract, and I've taken out the arrival time, but your departure time is still there. And I said, at the risk of repeating myself, I'm not going to sign a contract that tells me when I can come and when I can arrive. I'm not working under those conditions. And you may be listening to this and thinking I'm the arsehole, but believe me, at this point I had been doing it a long time. And
not only that, but the nature of the job is such that your whole, in his mind, it's like, okay, you're going to stay and you're going to prepare for tomorrow's show.
Right.
You spend the whole day.
You're never not thinking
preparing.
About the
exactly.
program.
You're thinking about the show all the time.
Yeah.
Things that are happening in your daily life. I can talk about that tomorrow. I can use that tomorrow. Show prep is an ongoing thing. It's not. Yeah. I mean, I know some guys sit down and go, okay, here's what we're going to do tomorrow. Let's write this funny little bit, and that's what we'll do tomorrow. That's not your style.
That's
and
not what we did.
Well, no, and it's not what made us successful. So
while that was happening, I got a phone call out of the blue, and I mean out of the blue. A lot of people asked me if I orchestrated it. I did not. The phone rang at my home, and I picked up the phone, and a guy said to me, my name is such and such, and I work at Chorus Radio in Calgary, and we're looking to make a change, and we were just wondering, what's the termination clause in your contract? He wanted to know how much notice I would have to give if I was going to leave. And I said, I don't have a contract. And there was a long pause. He said, what do you mean you don't have a contract? And I said, my contract has expired and we haven't signed anything. I'm a free agent. And he said, you mean you could like give 2 weeks notice? And I said, yeah, I would have to give 2 weeks notice. I think that's the right thing to do. And he said, can you fly to Toronto and have lunch with us on such and such a date? And I won't go through the machinations of, what the negotiations, were. But in 2007, the economy was booming in Calgary, and they really wanted me to go work for them. And they threw everything up in the air. When I asked them how long the contract day would be, they said, how long do you want? When I said, is the contract guaranteed? In other words, you have to, it's called pay or play, that every year in the contract is guaranteed. So if you signed for 5 years and they fired you after 2, they had to pay for 5. They agreed to everything that I put in front of them, and I left. And I didn't leave you out of the discussion. I had a lot of discussions with Ted, and Ted, being the class act that he is, said, do not let our friendship and our team stand in the way of you getting a better deal and doing something good for yourself and your family. And after much consternation, I was about to turn 50, or I had just turned 50, I think. That was a big change to make at that age. And I signed the contract, and off I went.
You had to get someone else to carry his bags this time.
I did.
Yeah, I wasn't there to carry them. Yeah.
I couldn't bring Ted with me this go-round. And I had a ball in Calgary. I loved Calgary. I loved everything about it. I enjoyed my time there. It was a terrific experience. There were some things that, they didn't know exactly what to do with me. The economy went for a shit a year after I got there. We hit the recession in 2008. So there were some things that weren't great timing-wise, but I don't regret it for a second, and I had a ball. And that left you in charge when I left.
Well, in charge in a way, yeah. I was, I wasn't the quote unquote host of the show. Rob Kemp actually came in.
Yeah.
And Rob hosted for a little while, about a year and a half, I guess. And then my version of your guy, who you clashed and butted heads with, came in, and same thing.
Yeah.
And I was of the opinion, and still am, that if you're the senior person on the morning show and you have long-standing tenure on that morning show and they want to make changes to that morning show, you should have some input. And this guy was not of that opinion at all.
That would be the respectful thing to do.
Well, yeah, no, and this guy didn't, and that was part of the changing landscape. That was after the radio station had been sold by the Slates, who were a radio family, to Astral, which was a corporation. And so instead of having these lifelong radio guys running the joint, you had, bean counters running the joint. So, when I suggested that, well, wait a minute, if you're going to make changes in the morning show, which they were going to, I'd like to sit in on the meetings. I'd like to have some input. And they were like, well, it's got nothing to do with you. It's not your decision. You'll just do what you're told. And so I butted heads with this guy for a while. And at one point he said, listen, if you don't like it, why don't you quit? And I said, okay, fuck you. I quit. Don't you know who I think I am? Mm. And away I went. And I thought that because I'd been doing what I'd been doing for a long time and I was pretty good at it, that I'd be okay. I'd be able to get another job. Maybe not at the, at the same compensation level, but I would do fine. But I totally misread the landscape of the business because it was changed. I should have known. In retrospect, I see it all now.
Yeah.
And just guys like me, they were showing guys like me the door. I did them a favor, actually, by leaving. They didn't have to fire me and pay me a big fat severance because I left. So I left with my pride and my integrity intact, but with an empty wallet.
You described it to me. You said to me, I didn't just burn the bridge.
2 flamethrowers, one in each hand.
And
that I can do live and learn. Makes for a good story.
It sure does.
Yeah.
And that is the story of the. That was the end of the Terry and Ted days.
Yeah. Well, the end of the Terry and Ted days were, that came to a conclusion when you went to Calgary.
Yeah.
But the end of either one of us at Shome, for the time being,
yes,
at least, was when I left in 2010.
Yeah. And people ask me why I came back, and it's a bit of a long story, but in a nutshell, they asked me. They came out to Calgary and said, we want you to come home. That's the short version of a very long story.
Time to tell you a little bit about our title sponsors at Jaguar Land Rover Laval. I was up there the other day because I had to reluctantly return the Jaguar F-Type P380 Sports Coupe that they loaned to Terry and me to drive around for the weekend. The last time we recorded some of these podcast episodes. What a beautiful, beautiful car. Goes like stink, too. And that's why I had to also inform them that when they get the photo radar ticket, that'll be for me. Just forward that to me. Actually, I don't think it's going to be that bad, but no. I did see a flash when I was going across the Illitort Bridge in the middle of the night, so that can only mean one thing. Now, when I went back up there to return the car, I was talking to Nino Di Cubelis, who is the president and owner of Jaguar Land Rover Laval, along with his brother Renato. Nino was telling me Jaguar races in the E-Series. You know what I mean? The electric cars.
I do.
They look like Formula One cars, but they're electric cars. Jaguar has a team. You know who one of their drivers is?
No.
Sam Bird.
No.
Yeah.
You're kidding.
Yeah, not my son, Sam Bird.
Oh, okay.
but a Sam Bird nonetheless. If any of the Birds were going to be race car drivers, it would have been Charlie.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, if I was a billionaire, Charlie Bird would be driving in Formula One right now.
Yeah, he is to say he's a master of automobiles would be a bit of an understatement. When they when Jaguar Land Rover Laval gives you an F-Type for the weekend, it's a good news, bad news kind of deal, eh, Ted? Because the good news is I got an F type Jaguar for you for the weekend. The bad news is you got to bring it back.
Yeah, but you know what? You may as well be grateful for the 2 or 3 days that we had it. What a spectacular vehicle. And it doesn't matter what kind of Jaguar you get yourself into. It's high-end luxury and pretty good bang for the buck on a comparative level. That F-Type is a spectacular sports coupe. That's a top-of-the-line sports coupe, and you can get into that for under 6 figures. And I know a lot of people are going, oh, yeah, but you know what? There is a market for those cars.
Yeah.
There are people who can afford those cars, and under 6 figures is a really good deal for a vehicle that beautiful.
And as I said to you when I was sitting in it, it's beautifully designed, an absolutely beautiful design for a sports car. And, of course, when you're at the dealership, you could also wander over and have a look at the Land Rovers, too.
And Jaguar Land Rover Laval does it right at every level. They have a spectacular product and they have spectacular service. And that starts at the top with Nino and Renato and goes all the way down. They have family who work there, and it's a family-run business. And they'll treat you like family when you go in there. They treat their staff like family. Well, that's because some of their staff are family. But even the ones who aren't family get treated like family. And you will be, too, when you go to Jaguar Land Rover Laval. They're on Carrefour, corner of Chomedy in Laval. That's where the new car dealership is. For the certified pre-owned and McLaren Montreal, you're just a little bit south of there on Chomedy Boulevard. Go up just to have a look. They'd be fine pleased to show you their spectacular lineup of vehicles. And I suppose you could ask for a spot of tea because they are British luxury vehicles. With Nino and Renato, you're probably better off asking for an espresso. They can probably round that up for you a lot quicker than a spot of tea.
You can also visit them online, of course. Visit
LandRoverLaval.ca or JaguarLaval.ca. This is from our second go-around at Shome. This is from a feature called Revisionist History. That I came up with when I was listening to the radio one day. And it was actually Gord Sinclair was doing, and he used to do this on the noon news on CJD every day. On this date in history, in 1925, and I thought, okay, well, it's interesting in its own way, but there's got to be a way to dress that up. And so I thought, how about this date in revisionist history? I'll take a famous event in history, and I'll twist it around and make a joke about it. And it became a long-running and popular feature for the most part. For whatever reason, older people don't like it. I had an elderly woman approach me at the Hudson Legion at one of the Remembrance Day dinners and say, I really enjoy your program except for revisionist history. I turn the radio off when that comes on. Well, I'm sorry you don't enjoy that.
And one of the things I want to mention is Ted and I, in the days when especially in the early days, I would gather up articles and newspaper clippings, and I had a notepad and a whole raft of stuff that I would decide the morning of what we would talk about, and I wouldn't let Ted anywhere near it because I wanted to do everything live on the air. And the same thing happened with revisionist history. You never knew what was coming.
And when it came to the Joke Translator, I never knew what was coming.
Right.
And the Joke Translator was born of, and I think this is why some people didn't like the bit, might have been because they didn't really get it. Like if you didn't know your history, you might not always get the joke. So then we introduced the Joke Translator, which was John Moore, our great and good friend, he's the biggest morning man in the country now, isn't he?
A big Toronto media star.
Yeah, yep. On CFRB.
It's CFRB
1010 radio on your dial. And so John would do the Joke Translator and explain why the joke was funny. So we picked this one because I think this is maybe the funniest Joke Translator that he ever did. And this was, what we're going to play is a replay from a Christmas show that we did. It was every Saturday morning we would do the best of Terry, Ted, and Kim when we were working with Kim Rossi. And I think that's where this is from because there's Christmas music. So I assume it wasn't sometime in August. Shall we?
Shall we?
Poseidon?
Yes. The Spirit of Rock, Shome 97.7, and Life is a Highway from Tom Cochrane and Band-Aid before that. Do They Know It's Christmas? 1984. Is that possible? Is it possible that was 20 years ago?
It's as possible as it is that the Beatles thing was 40 years ago.
I don't know.
Time marches on. We're old, wrinkly men.
We are grinkly, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Let's reminisce, shall we, Ted?
Sure. Remember the time? Remember the time back on Thursday? No, it was Wednesday. Remember the time back on Wednesday we did a Christmas revisionist history?
Oh, yeah, you got holy hell from the Christian Coalition, didn't you?
We laughed so hard. No, I got one letter.
Yeah.
I got one complaint letter, and I got about 10 letters from people saying, that was hilarious. You've got to send me a copy. It was Wednesday's Christmas revisionist history.
I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow.
This was our final hour.
Osama bin Laden, you can kiss my royal Irish ass.
Whatever.
And now, Revisionist History with Ted Bird on the Spirit of Rock. Shom 97.7.
Good morning, Ted.
Morning, Tear. Today in Revisionist History, on this date in 2 BC, the first Christmas was postponed for at least a year after an ultrasound revealed that Mary was pregnant with Jesus' older sister, Janet Christ. Although she lived anonymously in the shadow of her famous brother, Janet Christ was by all accounts a solid citizen, active in local charities and women's theater. They also say that she made the best fish cakes in all of Nazareth. Don't hear much about Janet.
No, you don't.
I don't even know if she gets a mention in the New Testament. All right, here's the Joke Translator. Just a word of warning. The Joke Translator, when he emailed this to me this morning, the subject field said, take all the phones off the hook.
Here we go.
This joke is funny, owing to the image of the much-put-upon sister of Jesus Christ, living a quiet life in the suburbs, putting up with weekly visits from her mother and constant haranguing. Jesus threw the moneylenders out of the temple. Jesus can make water into wine. You're wasting your life in a two-room hovel while your brother even has his own disciples. Last week he raised the dead. I'll have another one of those fish cakes. At least there's one skill you have. Did I tell you next week Jesus is going to Jerusalem on a donkey? So maybe you and that useless husband of yours might want to pick some palm fronds and get yourselves to the city and show just a little support for the family business for once. I'll have another fish cake.
One of the funniest joke translators ever. Anyway, we thought so, and anybody who listens to the program knows that we're not blasphemous. I was raised a Catholic, and I thought it was fall down funny. And that John Moore plays the role of the joke translator.
And that was one of the funniest ones yet. You know what? I think Jesus himself would have belly laughed at that.
I think so too. Yeah. That ought to be good for a few more letters. Music from the Pretenders and a Christmas favorite coming up.
I didn't know what era that was, but it sounded like I was all hepped up on the goofballs.
Well,
talking pretty fast.
I think that I think the tape was sped up a little bit. We both sound a little bit like this. Yeah. You know, that reminded me. Speaking of John Moore, John also wrote and did some of the voices on Westmount H3Z2Y4, and I know that I've got some copies of that somewhere. Yeah. I'll dig that out for a future episode. John is a very smart and very funny guy.
Ted and I have...
It was both burping.
Ted and
it's like we just had the early bird special. Christ, those guys need their nap. Get them off.
Ted and I have been talking about some early clips, and I won't be surprised if we get a lawyer's letter from Shom because
nor will I. But that's fine. We'll just we'll use it to promote the podcast.
Yes. It was from the I guess the mid-aughts, as I like to call it.
Yeah, that would have been around the early somewhere between 2002 and 2007.
We used to record a best of show to fill some Saturday programming. On Saturday mornings from 10 to noon, they would put together, the producers would put together a number of clips from the week, and we would go in and intro them, and we had a lot of fun doing it. You know, it was Friday morning. It was at 10 o'clock after we were done the main program.
We were already drunk.
We were tired. We were usually eating fried chicken.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of fun, and the show always closed out with a blooper reel. And that's, one of the things that I want to make sure that I keep saying throughout the podcasts that we do is the stories that we're telling, even the ones that weren't a lot of fun for us, please don't mistake it for complaining, because we've been so lucky, blessed, privileged, whatever word you want to use. We found something that we love to do, and people paid us to do it.
Well, what do they say? Do something that you love, and you'll never work a day in your life. Yeah.
And I really, when I look back on it, I think to myself, I never did any of it for the money. I did it because I
will now, though, because I need the money at this point. I'm more than happy to do it for the money.
2 divorces, that'll
that.
fix that.
Let me tell you.
I really, I want to make sure that people know we're telling stories. We're being honest, like we always have been over the years. And please don't mistake it for complaining, because we love to. You'll
know when we're complaining.
Oh, fuck, will you ever? You won't be able to mistake that. We've been lucky, and as Ted often says, we had a hell of a run.
Yeah,
we really did.
Well, I don't think we're done yet. I've had fun doing this so far.
Well, so have I.
Yeah,
and again,
Poseidon's still putting up with this. Yeah. He hasn't thrown us out of his studio yet.
No,
so
still.
You want to come back and do another one next week?
Still not asleep, Poseidon? not bored yet? Okay. Yeah, this is another thing that we've been, we mentioned this in the first episode, and we should mention it again. Mike Ward, Pantelis, Poseidon, Phil said, you guys got to do a podcast.
Yeah.
And we went, oh, okay.
And these are guys who are well established in the podcast industry. They've been doing it for a lot of years. They're at the top of the game, and they've afforded us an opportunity to get in on the top floor as opposed to the ground floor. So we're grateful for that.
Yeah, we are. And in the coming weeks, we promise some, I think eventually we're going to get some guests on once we get our feet on the ground. And there are still more stories to come.
Yeah, you got to put up with a few more stories about us.
Yeah.
And then we'll get some other people in here, and they can talk about us.
Standing by, the Terry and Ted podcast is sponsored by Jaguar Land Rover Laval, because you're probably going to move up north at some point anyway, so you might as well drive a Land Rover and fit in.